Isn't that wonderful? Isn't this footage? We want to thank Chimp Haven for the wonderful B-roll, and we'll get to some of the other issues that are coming up here a little bit later. Let me tell you what's going to be on the program. You have it on the table. We've got some additional surprises, but I do want to recognize some folks that are here. Some of them have been with us on this fight in their respective avenues as holding office and other ways as well. Former Mayor Marty Chavez, Albuquerque Mayor, is here. Marty, when he was a legislator, he helped us out during a very key period, and we really appreciate your effort on that. I want to welcome another dignitary here, Jim Noel. He's a judge in the 13th Judicial District here in New Mexico. Jim Noel, thank you. Another important figure that's here for us that really was a great help years ago in ways that would take way, way, way too long to explain. Former Attorney General Patricia Madrid is here. We can't thank her enough. You may not know this, but she's a huge animal advocate, taking a couple trips to Africa under her belt, so she's really into this, and we can't thank you enough, former AG, so much. We've got a candidate with us today who is also a huge animal advocate. That is Amanda Lopez Askin is here. Amanda, where are you? There you are. She's the current Doña Ana County Clerk, and she's running for New Mexico Secretary of State, and she has an amazing animal story, including being very involved with the chimp fight early on in her life as well, and being very blown away by the Jane Goodall book. We had a really nice talk about that. So welcome. We really appreciate you being here. All right, folks, I want to thank the folks on the online portion of our event. Thank you guys for joining us, wherever you may be. We'll be noting some of you as we go along as well. So let's get this going. Let's start by taking a look at how did we get here? A lot of you folks have been involved with this as long as our executive director, Lisa Jennings, for 28 years. Some maybe not that long, some longer, who knows? Here's a look at the chimp timeline here in New Mexico.
The plight of chimpanzees used in research in New Mexico began in the 1950s and 60s. Chimpanzees were captured in Africa and brought to Alamogordo, where they were trained at Holloman Air Force Base for early space missions, like Ham, the first hominid launched into space. And once their missions ended, those same chimpanzees were shuffled into government labs, traded between facilities, and bred for future experimentations. By the 1980s, a growing number of animal welfare observers were sounding alarms, setting the stage for the crisis that would fully surface in the 1990s. In 1993, Dr. Frederick Colston started the Colston Foundation, transforming Alamogordo, New Mexico into the epicenter of primate research in the United States. At its peak, the facility held more than 600 chimpanzees and 300 monkeys. Inside its walls, chimpanzees were used intensively in horrific experiments for surgical implants, hepatitis and HIV trials, experimental drug tests, and toxicology studies. Whistleblowers and USDA inspectors documented violations of the Animal Welfare Act, such as inadequate veterinary care, gross neglect, overcrowded cages, and reckless and dangerous procedures. Chimps died from anesthesia overdoses. 3 perished in an overheated shed. New Mexico found itself at the center of a national reckoning. Animal Protection New Mexico, the Humane Society of the United States, and In Defense of Animals sounded the alarm. Harriet Roller and Lisa Jennings of AP&M and Eric Kleiman of IDA became leading voices, revealing patterns of cruelty and neglect. Their work galvanized public outrage and political pressure. By the late 1990s, the Air Force, still the legal owner of many chimps, cut ties with Colston. In 1999, the foundation was forced to relinquish 288 chimpanzees to the NIH. As part of the deal, the government barred further invasive experiments on those chimps being housed at the Holloman Air Force Base. At the same time, Dr. Carol Noon and Save the Chimps, a sanctuary in Florida, sued the Air Force, winning custody of 21 chimps, and after the foundation's collapse in 2002, purchased part of the Colston compound and were given 266 chimpanzees. With support from donors and sanctuaries, they began the Great Chimpanzee Migration, eventually relocating those New Mexico chimps to the Save the Chimps sanctuary. By the early 2000s, the Colston Foundation was gone, its legacy in ruin. New Mexico, once a hub of space-age ambitions, had become a symbol of biomedical overreach and the growing movement to undo it. Many government-owned chimps remained at the newly renamed Alamogordo Primate Facility, or APF, run under contract by Charles River Laboratories. Though barred from invasive research at the time, the chimps were effectively warehoused. Meanwhile, in 2000, Congress passed the Chimp Act, creating a path and funding to retire federally owned chimps to sanctuary. The movement to show chimpanzees deserved a life out of the lab was growing, but implementation of the Chimp Act was slow and hard-won. In 2004, whistleblowers called out more tragedies. 21 chimps had died at APF, some from natural causes, others due to neglect and preventable accidents, including 3 electrocuted by faulty wiring. Otero County District Attorney Scott Key filed criminal animal cruelty charges against the facility's director. The case was later dismissed on an absurd technicality, but the message was clear. The public was watching. Then, in 2010, the NIH shocked the public by proposing to move all 200 surviving APF chimps to a lab in Texas to resume experiments. The backlash was immediate. The NIH's actions here are deceitful and incredibly unethical, said Laura Bonner, APNM's program officer at the time. Advocacy groups, local citizens, and elected leaders objected. Governor Bill Richardson became a national voice of opposition, as you'll hear later. Alongside New Mexico's congressional delegation, he urged the NIH to reconsider. In 2011, the National Academies of Sciences Institute of Medicine launched a formal review and declared most chimpanzee research scientifically unnecessary for human health. In 2015, the NIH finally announced they would formally end testing and retire their chimpanzees, starting with those at APF. Alas, progress remained slow. By the late 2010s, while almost 100 chimps had been moved to sanctuary at Chimp Haven, over 50 chimps were still at APF, aging, chronically ill due to their use in research, and stuck in sterile living conditions. In 2019, the NIH reversed course yet again, declaring the move to sanctuary too risky. APNM, the Humane Society of the United States, and others fought back, suing the NIH in 2021, arguing the Chimp Act guaranteed sanctuary for all. In 2022, a federal judge agreed. The NIH could not deny retirement based on health or age. Even then, months passed. Finally, in late 2024, the NIH relented. With pressures mounting, the agency announced that the final 21 chimpanzees would be transferred to Chimp Haven. And so, in early 2025, the last chimps left New Mexico, among them Montessa, who was kidnapped from her family in the wild and trafficked to New Mexico in 1975. Kamaka and Al, older males forced into unnaturally small and isolated groups, and Faylene, a quiet survivor of decades of tests. For the first time in nearly 70 years, no chimpanzees remain in New Mexico's research labs. The Alamogordo Primate Facility closed its doors for good. What began with a chimp named Ham and the goal of space travel ended with a journey of dignity, healing, and long overdue peace. The legacy of New Mexico's research chimps is now one of redemption, a story that shows how far we've come and a promise to never go back. And for Animal Protection New Mexico, despite every reason over the past 28 years to stop fighting, we never gave up. For the chimps.
Thank you, Jesse. Isn't that wonderful? It really puts into place how difficult this has been for a long time. We're going to hear from our keynote speaker, Ambassador Tom Udall, to finish the event, and he's going to relate some of the history that's happened on the political side. It's really quite the tale. It's taken every effort of all kinds of New Mexicans to pull this off, and we're so grateful. So let's start the program and hear from the top. Our Executive Director, Lisa Jennings. If I could ask you to come to the stage, please.
Something always seems impossible until it's done. These powerful words from Nelson Mandela perfectly sum up our Colston Chimp Freedom Campaign. And the campaign itself reflects Animal Protection New Mexico's values. We don't just set our sights on what seems immediately possible or easy. We reach for transformational change in pursuit of justice. APNM's Colston Chimp Freedom Campaign was planned all along as a path toward ending research on all chimps and ensuring their permanent retirement in sanctuaries. APNM's campaign, along with the tireless work of allied organizations, including the phenomenal Chimp Haven, was key to the impossible outcome in 2015 when NIH announced an end to all chimp research in the US, and this year when the last Colston chimps reached sanctuary. The Colston Chimp Freedom Campaign has been emblematic of APNM's signature approach. We dismantle harmful systems and we build humane systems. Freeing the chimps required a remarkable collaboration between advocacy efforts that were driven by APNM, In Defense of Animals, and the Humane Society of the US, and sanctuary solutions created by Chimp Haven and Save the Chimps. These partnerships required skill, stamina, resilience, and fortitude. Unfortunately, after we and IDA closed down the Colston Foundation, the largest and most infamous primate research facility in the world in 2002, unfortunately, moving the chimps to sanctuary still took decades after that. We needed support from key members of Congress, and APNM had to prove that the new federal chimp sanctuary system at the time, Chimp Haven, could actually take New Mexico's remaining chimps. I'll never forget my first visit to Chimp Haven's remarkable facility with two HSUS colleagues on my birthday in 2008. Up to that point, we only had a theoretical home for the chimps. Being there, we could finally envision where New Mexico's chimps might someday retire. The gravity of our visit to the sanctuary was all-consuming. Chimp Haven was pivotal to our campaign's success. Chimp Haven's director at the time, Dr. Linda Brent, shared this warm note to us in advance of our visit. I'm very much looking forward to talking to you about these chimps and helping to figure out a way to extend retirement to more of them, she said. Today's Chimp Haven, under the impressive leadership of Raina Smith, offers that same contagious enthusiasm and determination to help these chimps live their best chimp lives. Looking back, this campaign was like a long-distance relay race with continuous hurdles thrown in our way. It forced us to muster every resource, to seek help from every ally we knew, use every tool in our toolbox, and ignore every doubter that crossed our paths. We refused to listen when people told us, these chimpanzees will never go to sanctuary. Reflecting on this 28-year campaign, there's only one word that neatly encapsulates 3 decades of struggle. That word is gratitude. This impossibly successful campaign is notable because so many in and beyond New Mexico, in our New Mexico community, cared. Collectively, we achieved our goal of shutting down the disgraced Colston Foundation and seeing every last surviving chimp reach sanctuary. Obviously, I can't name all our champions, but I want to highlight U.S. Senators Tom Udall, Martin Heinrich, and Ben Ray Lujan, Congresswoman Melanie Stansbury and former Pennsylvania Congressman Jim Greenwood, the late Governor and Ambassador Bill Richardson, New Mexico Land Commissioner Dr. Ray Powell Jr., Attorneys General Patricia Madrid and Gary King, District Attorney Scott Key, the late State Senator Mary Jane Garcia, Albuquerque Mayor Marty Chavez, Lieutenant General Bradley Hosmer, Dr. Jane Goodall, actor Ally McGraw, Renee Romo and Deval Westfall, formerly of the Albuquerque Journal, attorney Richard Metz, and former lab employees. They all stepped up and spoke out in truly exceptional ways. And because our campaign spanned decades, one of our most ardent and consequential supporters, Ambassador Udall, bolstered this campaign as a U.S. Congressman, a U.S. Senator, and U.S. Ambassador. Of course, none of this could have happened without sufficient financial backing from so many for so long. But 2 funders stand out for their endurance and level of commitment: Arcus Foundation and the Carol Petrie Foundation. At some point, each of them was just getting to know us, and they trusted us to do something that no one else had ever done before. Their contributions to this impossibly wonderful outcome will never be forgotten. And finally, every person in this room has played a role in this impossible victory for the chimps. We deeply honor you and your part in helping New Mexico write a wonderful final chapter to its chimpanzee story. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa. Really appreciate it. It's really hard to encapsulate. I can't even imagine. There's so many people to thank. Now we're going to hear from Chimp Haven. Let me introduce, yes. Raina Smith, who's the president and CEO, and Michelle Reininger, who's going to be speaking about how the chimps are faring, and I think you're going to want to hear about that too. Please, Raina. Oh, sorry about that.
Thanks so much, Jean. And Lisa, we are so excited to be your partner in this, too. We're so excited to be able to provide the happy endings for so many of these chimps that spent decades in biomedical research. So I'm Raina Smith. I'm the CEO of Chimp Haven, and just so excited to be here today. For those of you who aren't familiar with our sanctuary or who haven't visited, I'll start by just sharing a little bit about Chimp Haven and who we are. Okay, so Chimp Haven is the world's largest chimpanzee sanctuary. We're actually located just outside of Shreveport, Louisiana, and we're on 200 beautiful forested acres of land right smack in the middle of a nature park. And we have 305 chimps at Chimp Haven. Almost all of them were used in biomedical research. Almost all of them are owned by the National Institutes of Health. But they range in age from 8-year-old little Carly to our 65-year-old chimps, Jacob and Julia. So there is a big span of age at Chimp Haven. And I think most of you know Chimp Haven, or chimpanzees, are incredibly social beings, and they love to live in large family groups. So we've got 30 different family groups at Chimp Haven, which is really cool because when the Alamogordo new arrivals came, and you know many of the chimps in Alamogordo just like lived in pairs or maybe a trio, we get to introduce them into a larger family group so they have lots of new friends. And with 30 different family groups at Chimp Haven, and they all have their own kind of personality and characteristics, we can find the right family for even the quirkiest of chimps. So we're thrilled about that. But at Chimp Haven, you know, it's all about just providing the best retirement for the chimpanzees. That is really our singular focus. And life at Sanctuary for the chimps is pretty cool. So they get a lot of fresh, healthy diets, plenty of fresh, you know, fruits and veggies. We want to make sure that the chimps are mentally engaged and stimulated, as well as being physically healthy. So we give them lots of novel enrichment every single day of the year. So that could look like food puzzles or music or just all different kinds of things to keep them engaged and entertained. And then, of course, we've got excellent veterinary care and animal care staff, and you'll hear from Michelle Reiniger in a minute. And she's in charge of husbandry, who is responsible for the daily care of the chimps. So one of the most important things, though, at Chimp Haven is kind of baked into our ethos, and that is we provide the ability for chimpanzees to choose how they want to spend their days and who they want to spend their time with. And after years in biomedical research where they didn't have any of those choices, that is a big part of what we do every day at the sanctuary. Okay, so let's talk about some of the Alamogordo chimps that are at Chimp Haven. And Lisa mentioned this earlier, but back in 2016 to 2018, we actually received 74 chimpanzees from the Alamogordo primate facility. So NIH sent those chimps to us. They've been at Chimp Haven now for a number of years, settling in, making new friends, having lots of new experiences. So let me just share a couple of stories about some of those chimpanzees. Okay, meet Hope. Hope came to Chimp Haven in 2018 from Alamogordo, and when she arrived, it was really clear that she was going to be Miss Popularity. If her social group was like a high school, she would be the prom queen for sure. And she is known to greet all of her group members with a great big warm hug. You can see her giving a hug right there to another chimp named Corny. But that's kind of what she's known for, and she's lived up to her reputation as just an incredibly loyal, caring friend to all the chimpanzees in her social group. And when you look at Hope, you can probably see that she has no hair. So she has alopecia, just like a human being would have alopecia, and that doesn't slow her down a bit. And in fact, you know, sometimes her skin gets a little bit dry, especially in the wintertime in Louisiana. So whenever she has a physical exam, our vet team will get like the thick lavender smelling body butter, you know, from like Lush, and rub it all over her body and keep her skin nice and soft. And she's a total diva, so she loves, you know, the extra pampering. But one little story about Hope, which is really cool, is that, well, let me back up a minute. At the sanctuary, the chimpanzees have indoor bedrooms, and they're attached to their outdoor enclosures, right? And so typically, the chimpanzees have 24/7 indoor-outdoor access. They can stay inside, they can go outside, they can sleep outside, they can sleep inside, whatever they want to do. But we need to have them come indoors into their bedrooms every once in a while. We need to lock them in when we clean their outdoor habitats, or when there's like a big storm rolling into Louisiana, we might want to lock them in if there's like a tornado threat. Well, we found out that Hope, when she came to us from Alamogordo, was really reluctant to be locked inside. So we would call her in along with all of her group mates, and she would come and stand at the door, and she's like, yeah, I don't want to go in. You know, I'm not going to go in today. So we've got to get her in. So we, through, months and years of patient positive reinforcement training, have given Hope the choice and the way to express herself. So when we call her in and she comes to the door, one of our care staff members, her trainer, will hold up like a blue Frisbee or a yellow tennis ball. And if Hope touches the blue Frisbee, it means that she's comfortable coming inside. She knows we're going to lock the doors behind her, and she'll have all kinds of little treats in the bedroom waiting for her. But if she touches the yellow tennis ball, she's telling us, I'm not feeling it today. I don't want to come inside. And we honor that. You know, we respect her choice, and we'll clean another day. And I think that trust and that relationship that we've built with Hope is just one small example of the type of relationships that our incredible care staff, you know, build with each and every chimp at the sanctuary. So that's Hope's story. And then next up is TJ and Nicole. Have you ever seen two more beautiful chimpanzees? They are gorgeous. We think that they would make a superpower couple, but they're just friends. So they hang out together on tall structures in their play yard, and they snoop on their neighbors. They're really super nosy. But they're in a group of 18 chimps, and they recently were just introduced to another chimpanzee named Henry. Henry is our only former pet at the sanctuary, and he lived in a garage in Houston for about 15 years. And so you can imagine when he finally was rescued and came to Chimp Haven, poor Henry didn't even know he was a chimpanzee. And so he had to learn all the appropriate chimp social behaviors. And so he's got all kinds of quirky little behaviors. But TJ and Nicole are super good friends to him. He's also in Hope's group, so she's given him the big hug. And Henry's doing really well now at the sanctuary, and everybody accepts him. And it's just really heartwarming to know that, you know, despite their backgrounds, despite their ages, they can make new friends, have new experiences, and have an incredible, you know, second chance at life. Okay, moving on to the final 21 APF chimps. So last November, NIH decided that they were going to move all the remaining chimps in Alamogordo to sanctuary. Finally, after your decades of advocacy and support, it finally happened, and it almost like it happened overnight. So they notified us in November, and we had the first chimps on a transport vehicle in January. So between January and March of this year in 2025, we had 4 transports to move all 21 chimps to Chimp Haven. And they did great on the transports. They had unlimited, you know, warm blankets, pit stops, little treats and juice along the way. They would arrive to Chimp Haven in the middle of the night, and we would move them, and they would settle into our welcoming center. And that's where they can, you know, just settle in to a new environment, start making new friends, and just hang out a bit while we get to know their incredible personalities. We're in the process right now of building a building addition for the new Alamogordo chimps. So we've got 16 chimps that are in our welcoming center, and we've already introduced 5 to other larger family groups around the sanctuary. But we're super excited to have that building addition done, probably like late fall, winter time, and then we'll be able to move the chimps into their new spaces. This is all of our staff, super excited, welcoming the last of the 21 Alamogordo chimps to the sanctuary. So we had to make a big sign and, of course, take a picture and film it. So these are the 21 newbies, the new arrivals. And I'm going to turn things over to my colleague, Michelle Reiniger, who, again, is director of our colony director at Chimp Haven. And she's going to tell you a little bit about some of these newbies and how they're settling in. Thank you.
All right, hello everybody, and thank you so much for having us here today. We're really excited to celebrate with you this what seemed like an impossible journey that did come to a conclusion in a very positive way. As Raina said, I'm the colony director at Chimp Haven. So my job is basically to oversee all of the care staff who get to do the fantastic job of providing the day-to-day care for all of our chimpanzees. And so no day is ever dull, I'll tell you that. We get a lot of personalities to work with, and we have about 1 million stories, but unfortunately I have a very limited time, so I'm just going to share a few of them with you. Okay, so as Raina kind of mentioned before, one of our ethos at Chimp Haven is that we believe that chimps thrive and do their best when they're in large family groups, and we like to make those family groups not only large, but also multi-male, multi-female. Many of these chimps came to us in just same-sex groups, so this is going to be, for a lot of them, the first time in their lives that they've had the opportunity to males be with females and so forth. So 2 of the chimps that we have since their arrival introduced into a new group are Al and Kamaka. This was actually the first day of their intro, and Al and Kamaka were introduced into a group of 5 chimps that were what we call Taboo's group. And Taboo is a male who is kind of in charge of the group. He's the only male in the group, and we just really thought that Taboo could use a couple new friends. And he lives with 4 females, 2 females, very chill females who you see pictured here with Al and Kamaka, and that would be Zoe and Esther. So the intro actually went very, very well when we opened up the doors and everybody was in together. Taboo did a quick run through the enclosure and was doing what males do, you know, banging on things, being all tough and oh, I'm so tough. Walked through to make sure that Al and Kamaka knew that he was going to be in charge of this, or this was his territory. Al and Kamaka just kind of gave him a look sideways, went, yeah, you know, it's cool, dude. We're just here to relax. And so with that, Taboo said, oh, well, that's good. And they got to know each other. There was a lot of grooming going on, a lot of panting, which is an affiliative behavior where they're and you would hear that all day long on the first day of their introduction. And then the ladies were thrilled. Both Zoe and Esther were very thrilled. For Esther, that's saying a lot because she's a bit of a curmudgeon, but she was actually very happy to get to know Kamaka. They sat and ate some of their fresh produce together and just had a really good and pleasant day together. So this is a little bit of a close-up of Al, who we call Big Al, and Kamaka. We call him Big Al because he's probably one of the tallest chimps that we have at Chimp Haven. He's very long in the legs and very long in the arms. He came in with Kamaka over here on the right. Kamaka started out originally, he was very reserved and didn't really know what to make of everybody at Chimp Haven, but over time we've managed to earn his trust, and we found he's actually a very, very playful little boy. He loves to invite care staff to play, he loves to invite Al to play. His whole day he likes to just be very active and play, and he's actually older than Al. He's 54 and Al is 51, I believe. But Big Al over there, like I said, he's a big guy, and we did the final introduction of bringing the last 2 ladies into their group, which was Watoni and Roxanne. These are very, very strong-willed ladies, and so we knew they were going to be the test for Al and Kamaka as far as getting included and welcomed into that group. And so the funny thing is, when we opened the doors for Watoni and Roxanne and let them into their group, which was a week after the original introduction, we had tiny little Watoni, who's one of our smallest chimps. She probably weighs about 80, maybe 90 pounds. So tiny little Watoni's walking across the yard towards Al. She get big, huge, welcoming face. So she was very excited to see him. And then you get Big Al comes over and basically gives her a hug, and Watoni disappears. She was so tiny that she disappeared underneath Al, and all we could hear was Al's belly was laughing. And that was Watoni, so we knew she was still there. But the next slide I'm going to show you is actually a video of Al and Watoni together, and she's grooming him. She's very attentive to Al, wants to make sure that his hair coat stays nice and clean. The grooming is also a very good affiliative behavior. It's a way of strengthening those bonds with another chimp, letting them know, hey, I got your back, I'm here for you whenever you need me. So there you see Miss Watoni, she's behind Al, and Al's just very leisurely taking it all in, getting his back massaged for the day. And Al is very popular, not only with the other chimps, but also with the care staff. I will tell you that he's a very popular guy. All right. We also had, as Raina kind of mentioned, we had a group we call the Golden Oldies. If you look in the top right, you'll see Julius. Julius is actually 65 years of age, which is pretty old for a chimp. In the wild, they're considered to be geriatric at the age of 35. So, but in captivity, because they have regular health care, if they have good diets and good care, they can actually live into their 60s and 70s. Julius is 65, which is, again, an older age. And so but he's still going strong, and he has been living with Little Rose, who's over here in the bottom right-hand corner. We thought that they needed some new buddies, but of course, when you're dealing with chimps that are a little older, it takes a really special type of chimp to be able to introduce into that group and grow that family larger. And so we were very pleased when we got these three ladies, Faylene, Nikel, and Olivia, because we thought, you know what, these guys are just exactly the right speed for these two. And so we introduced them all together as a group, and they hit it off really well right from the beginning. Nikel in the center was a little bit of a troublemaker to begin with, because she is, how can I explain it? She's that awkward friend everybody knows that just doesn't understand social cues. So she came in and she fell instantly in love with Julius, wanted to be around Julius all the time. She wanted to be touching Julius all the time. She wanted to play with Julius all the time. As I said, Julius is 65 years old. Julius was like, okay, we can do this. And so he would bounce with her. He would walk around with her. He would, hold her hand, and they'd be walking through their area. And then Julius, he's like, okay, that's enough. And Nikel would be like, no, but Julius. And Julius would do one of these numbers, which for a chimp is, I'm ready for a nap. And so Nikel, though, would kind of push a little bit. She would call her friend Olivia. Little Rose would come to back up Julius, and they would kind of stand there, and there would be a little bit of a squabble, but then it would quickly settle down, and eventually Nikel has learned, thankfully, to respect Julius's boundaries. So they actually do very, very well together. All the ladies sit in a big grooming party during the day, and they're just a really great group. They're a really fun group to follow. All right, this is one of my favorites. This is Fun Face over here on the left. Fun Face, big, strong guy, and Pearl Bug over here on the right. Now, as Raina was mentioning, we had 2 transports in the month of February. They were back-to-back. In the first transport, we brought in Pearl Bug's group. In the second transport, a week later, we brought in Fun Face's group. So Pearl Bug was established in our welcome center. She was in her bedroom, all nice and comfy on her little nest. And then we brought Fun Face's group in, and we go through a process for the unloading, and we had to adjust some things to get the bedroom ready for Fun Face to come and be unloaded into the bedroom. So we're in the process of doing all these things, moving things around, and all of a sudden we look over, we notice that the transport of Fun Face is going like this. And look over, and Fun Face is inside of his transport very slowly, moving his transport closer and closer and closer to the side where Pearl Bug is. He wanted to go and make his own introduction. So we said, no, we can't do that. So we told him, you're going to have to wait, Fun Face. So we pulled him back over, unloaded him on his side. Probably the next week, we had everything situated, so we were able to move Fun Face into a yard that was right next to Pearl Bug's. They were able to actually see each other through the mid-wall that divides the 2 areas. They could see each other. They can't touch each other, though, because we don't want to take any risk of anybody getting bitten. So they were immediately right at the mid-wall with one another, very excitedly grinning each other, just basically just sitting there with each other multiple times during the day. Fun Faces group actually got cleared. We have different areas in our welcome center. So we have some areas to the front that have concrete flooring, which we keep the chimps in until they're able to move into the play yard areas, which are larger areas with grass. And that's basically just because we want to make sure that they're clear of parasites. We don't want them bringing any kind of internal parasites onto the dirt. Well, Fun Faces group got cleared to go into one of the larger yards, and so we had moved him to the back to go into that yard. Hooray for Fun Face, it was an awesome time. He and his group just really loved that yard and loved running around and exploring it. The only detriment was that Fun Face no longer had visual access to Pearl Bug. However, he and Pearl Bug would call to one another. So we would have Fun Face start a little pant hoot over on the side. A pant hoot basically with the chimps when they do that, ooh, 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 and then they do a big scream I'm not going to do because this is a microphone. But anyway, he would start that, and then you would actually hear Pearl Bug respond on the other side. She would do the same thing from time to time, and he would respond on his side. And that went on for a while. But at the same time, because Fun Face groups had moved out, we moved another group of boys that we had over into the yard next to Pearl, and she started paying attention to one of the other boys. At the same time, Fun Face noticed that in his new yard, he now had visual access where he could look across probably a couple hundred feet, and he could see one of the areas of a habitat that we have. And there was a very beautiful lady named Sheena who was paying him a lot of attention. So we thought, oh, well, guess the romance is over. They've all found new interest. However, a week later, Pearl Pearl Bug's group got cleared to be able to go into a play yard. So we moved them into the play yard right next to Fun Face. And lo and behold, very, very exciting reunion. And I'm not going to lie, I had tears in my eyes watching it. It was just the sweetest thing ever. They were over against the side of that wall for the entire day with one another, just putting their heads up against the mesh, putting their butts up against the mesh. They were very, very much reunited. So it was really great to see. All right, and there's Pearl Bug in her other favorite place to be. If she's not at the mesh hanging out with Fun Face, she's in her yard laying in the grass. Very, very fond of laying in the grass and taking a nap, and so that's generally the position you're going to find her in. All right, so we also have, this is the group that lost out on having Pearl for their best friend. But this is a wonderful group, too. Henry in the center is a 62-year-old male, so he's the oldest of the chimps that were brought from New Mexico just recently. But you cannot tell him he's 62. Age is just a number. He's very, very energetic, loves to run around his area, making lots of noise and keeping the other two younger males in place. And so Shogun over on the left, he probably is the biggest of all the chimps. He's even bigger than Al. Has a very large head, but he's a complete goofball. He's hilarious. He's a lot of fun to play with. And then Guido over here on the right, kind of a troublemaker. I'm telling Guido, he likes to go over and the yard that he's currently in right now is actually, it's at our welcome center where he's between two other groups. And so he likes to go over and antagonize one group and then go tell everything that he's done to the other group and get congratulations from them. So he gets reinforcement for that bad behavior, but he's a big goofball too. And then this is Fun Face's group. I had to put a picture of them up there just so you know who else Fun Face is in with. This is a wonderful group of boys. They all have their own unique personality. You got Nazrat there in the center, you look at him to begin with, and he's very, very stoic. Seems like he's just very serious. All you have to do is say his name, lights up like a Christmas tree, big, huge play face, and then he's like, let's go, let's play tag, and you got to run around with him, and he's got a lot more energy than any of us do, but big old male. Fred over here on the right also loves to play, also loves to be up on his structure, and he's also found a lady over in our habitat that he likes to give a wink or two to as well. And then we have Thaddeus down at the bottom, another one who loves to play, and then Mr. Burt. He's very, very people-oriented. He's fascinated by one of my caregivers named Colton, so they are good buddies. And so he gets very excited every time Colton comes into his area to either give them their food or to clean. So, but yeah, I just want to take this opportunity to thank everybody for all of the persistence, the dedication, everything that was done to help these chimps come home to Chimp Haven. We are so thrilled to have them. And we're just grateful to everyone for allowing us to give them the chimp life. Thank you.
So two quick things. One is if you're interested in visiting Chimp Haven, you can go to our website. We do have private tours, and we also have public days a couple times a year, once in spring, once in the fall. You're welcome to come as well, and we are getting ready to celebrate our 30th anniversary in October, and we'll have a lot of celebrations. You'll see that on the website too. And then also I wanted to just draw your attention to the little cards that you have on your table. On the back, you can write a little note to the chimps, the chimpanzees from Alamogordo. We actually sit down and read all of the little cards to the chimpanzees, and we hang them up at the sanctuary, and the chimps really seem to love it. So if you want to write a little note, there's probably a lot of little things we'll do with those, so feel free. We appreciate it. Okay?
We have so many people to thank. First, our folks from Chimp Haven. Wasn't that wonderful? Yep. I personally have not been, but I would like to at some point. I'm sure a lot of you would as well, so please do take advantage of that. All right, up next, we do want to thank someone who meant a lot to this situation. That is Governor Bill Richardson. Unfortunately, Barbara Richardson is not able to make it, but she is watching on the live stream, and we're very pleased about that. She has some words that I'd like to read before we play our tribute. And from Barbara, I am so pleased that you are recognizing Bill for the work he did on the chimp sanctuary. I see where the remaining chimps in New Mexico were sent to sanctuary. For me, it closes a chapter, and I know how much it would have meant to Bill. Let's watch.
Bill Richardson's life was a story of service to people, to principle, and to compassion. A son of the U.S. and Mexico, he rose to become one of New Mexico's most influential public figures, serving in Congress as U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Secretary of Energy, and finally, two-term Governor of New Mexico. Throughout his career, Richardson was known for his bold diplomacy, his tenacity, and his belief that public service must include protecting those without a voice. As governor, he championed causes that reflected New Mexico's spirit: land conservation, indigenous rights, rural communities, and yes, animal welfare. He signed laws strengthening protections for shelter animals. He backed wildlife conservation programs. He openly supported efforts to end horse slaughter. It was no surprise then that when a crisis emerged in his own backyard, he answered the call. In 2010, the National Institutes of Health announced plans to transfer nearly 200 chimpanzees from the Alamogordo Primate Facility to a research lab in Texas. Many of these chimpanzees had already endured decades in biomedical research. They were aging, vulnerable, and silent. Richardson immediately objected. He appealed directly to NIH leadership. He called on Congress. He worked with New Mexico Senators Jeff Bingaman and Tom Udall, joining them to intervene on behalf of the chimpanzees. And together they pressed for a change in NIH's plan. His actions helped lead to a temporary moratorium and a historic national review of the value of chimps research by the National Academies of Sciences Institute of Medicine. The result changed American research policy forever. The conclusion that most biomedical research on chimpanzees was no longer scientifically justified. Today, the final chapter of that long journey is being written. The last chimpanzees once held at Alamogordo have found sanctuary. They climb trees, they touch grass, they rest under open skies, and behind them stands a legacy built by voices like Bill Richardson's, a leader who stood with courage, a public servant who acted from conviction, a New Mexican who never forgot who he served. And today, we honor that service. And we invite you to join us in remembering Governor Bill Richardson and in celebrating the lasting freedom he helped secure for the chimpanzees of Alamogordo. A promise made, a promise kept, a life that made a difference.
He did so much. He really did. And to Barbara watching, and to Bill's sister watching in Mexico, we're very grateful for the live stream. Can I ask for a round of applause for the family of Bill Richardson? Good stuff. Can I ask for Renee Romo and Carolyn Ortega to make your way up to the stage, please? We're going to hear some words from some folks. Renee is with Senator Lujan's office, but you heard earlier Lisa mentioned that he also was a very key cog in the media machine about reporting what was happening to the Alamogordo chimps at that time, along with Deval Westfall, who's here. Of course, she's with the Chamber. Oh, there you are. Thank you, Deval. And a whole roster of media folks here in New Mexico that at some point, we'll maybe post it on our website, who really, truly helped out with this cause. You can't get your side of the issue out unless the media is willing to let you say something. So we're very grateful for that. So Renee, if you'd be so kind, some words from Senator Lujan. Glad you're here.
Thank you, Gene. Yeah, if you'll indulge me for just a minute, I first got involved in this cause in the late 90s working for the Albuquerque Journal. And I learned so much from the campaign. I learned about how to do good journalism with the vital support of amazing researchers In Defense of Animals and with the Animal Protection of New Mexico. And learned about campaigns, learned about politics, and learned about about animal rights, that whole issue. And I was a better journalist for it, and I think we all owe a debt of gratitude for this campaign because it was really educating all of us about the duty we owe to the non-human world and how we can do better. So thanks for that. But I'm here to read some remarks from Senator Ben Ray Lujan. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words to celebrate the completion of the transfer of the last chimpanzees retired from biomedical research to Chimp Haven in Louisiana. This day is a culmination of years and years of collective effort by many individuals whose principles and values would not allow them to give up until this day had come. I am proud to stand in their company, and I am proud to have carried on the efforts of Senator Tom Udall and Jeff Bigeman, who championed the welfare of these chimps when they represented our state. This day has been years in the making. 30 years ago, animal rights groups like Animal Protection of New Mexico and In Defense of Animals brought pressure on the federal government to scrutinize the care that chimps in research settings were receiving, including those held by the Colston Foundation in Alamogordo. In 1999, as a result of public pressure, the Colston Foundation agreed to divest itself of nearly half of its chimps under a settlement with the USDA for violations of the Animal Welfare Act. By mid-2000, the National Institutes of Health took title to nearly half of the Colston chimps. And around that time, in late 2000, Congress passed the Chimpanzee Health Improvement, Maintenance, and Protection Act, the Chimp Act, which required that former federally owned chimps used in research be moved out of laboratory cages and to the more natural setting of a sanctuary. But as you all know, the federal legislation was interpreted in ways that, for these last Holloman chimps, delayed their transfer to sanctuary for far too long. I'm proud to say that my office pushed, despite the obstacles, to see that the last chimps could live out their lives in a better environment. The chimps deserved better, and everyone who advocated on their behalf is better off for having done so. Thank you to Animal Protection of New Mexico and all of your members and allies for your hard work, your determination, your principles, and your vision. The chimps have a better home now, and you can all be proud of that. Senator Ben Ray Lujan. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Absolutely perfect. Thank you. And please thank the senator from us, if you'd be so kind. Mayor Keller couldn't make it. He's got a big day today, as you might know. That's a mayor's day, mayor's ball. That's right. So they're getting ready for that. Carolina Tager's here. We're very glad for this. She's from the Animal Welfare Department in the city, and I'd like her to say a few words as well. Please.
Good evening. The mayor sends his regrets, but he sends a heartfelt congratulations. He was very proud to play a modest part in being part of this initiative in 2010. He actually signed one of the letters to support this. He wishes he could be here. I'm the second choice, but I'm also very proud to be here. And by understanding that he was part of the original initiative, it makes me prouder to work for him and to work for animal welfare. We don't often get the opportunity to do something more broad than the companion animals in the city of Albuquerque. But with the support of our counselor, Tammy Feeblecorn, APNM, and of course the mayor, we were able to participate in a UNM study with Dr. Yu that allowed us to provide them with many specimens that came from our thousands of spay and neuters that we do a year to help to hopefully do enough research to reduce pet testing and hopefully in the future eliminate pet testing. One of the things that we're proudest of at Albuquerque Animal Welfare and the city of Albuquerque is that we have some of the strictest animal protection ordinances in the country. And every day I'm called by a different organization around the state asking how we're able to enforce those laws. And I'm proud to say that because of people like you, people from the state, and people like Mayor Keller, we have the resources to be able to enforce those pet laws to make sure that our pets are always protected from those that might want to take advantage of them. So with the city of Albuquerque in an animal welfare environment where we focus on setting goals of getting every pet into a home where they can be safe and happy and healthy, we want to send our sincere gratitude to Animal Protection New Mexico and Chimp Haven for finding these chimps their forever homes.
Thank you so much. That was.
Don't forget the city of Albuquerque rescued us 2 elephants.
Oh.
That's a while back, but
It should be noted. That should be noted. Absolutely. That was a big deal back then. That was a very big deal. Good for you. Say again. Oh, yes. The mayor's office was involved with a hideous elephant situation here in the city. You might recall there was things at the state fair. There were just a big mess, and APNM had to step into it, but we got help from the city, and it really worked out quite well. But yeah, these things happen. Our history of APNM for different things, circus animals, you name it, we're all over it. But let's get back to chimps here real quick. All right. If we can get the ambassador, there he is. I want to start by introducing Ambassador Tom Udall. We are so glad he is back in America and in New Mexico. Yes. Come on up, sir. I want you to know, Lisa mentioned this, but when Ambassador Udall was a representative, he was a sign-on to the Chimp Act. Jim Greenwood is watching live. You may not know this ambassador. You can say hello to him if you want. But then also, as time went on, in 2010, Senator Tom Udall expressed concern over NIH's plans at the time to move those research chimps. You saw that in our Bill Richardson video. But there was a lot of things that he did that a lot of folks don't know about that was really impactful. A lot of sign-on letters and a visit with the NIH. But so let's hear from him, our keynote speaker, Ambassador Tom Udall.
What's that? Oh, welcome home. Thank you. And let me tell you, Jill and I are very excited being home. Many people hear that and they say, "You are?" But we really are, and especially to be with our daughter and our son-in-law. Amanda's right back there, Amanda Cooper, and Judge Jim, I call him Judge Jim Knoll, the district court judge in this region. So just thank you, and Gene, thank you for those really, really nice, generous words in terms of an introduction. The thing that I'm going to try as the cleanup hitter to not say anything that's been said before me, okay? And that's going to be hard because a lot has been covered here. But and try to tell you a couple of new things. First of all, one of the things that we all know, caring for animals and animal protection done an incredible job over this 28-year battle, you know. And I didn't think when I got into this it was going to take decades, but it did. And one of the thoughts I had was about Jane Goodall. She's been a lifelong friend. She travels all over the world. She travels more than 300 days a year and has been doing that for about 40 years. And a lot of times she's talking about the chimps, but she's also talking about back when she did the research that showed how close chimpanzees, everybody knows how close the two of us are together virtually in terms of being beings. But nobody believed that they could think and do things. And she proved that, living out in Africa in a very, very special way. And so I thought, what could be a stronger voice than somebody like Jane Goodall speaking up? So I called her, and we got to be such good friends, by the way, that the vet doing the ho, 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 ho. Every time she saw me, she would put her hands out like this, and I knew she was going to go ho, 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 and I would do the same thing, and we'd have a big hug. And she was just such a special person. And so I said, Jane, every time you're in Washington, and her nonprofit was in Washington, and she was probably there a couple of times a year. A young man here in New Mexico, John Silver, was on her board. And Jane would come to Washington. She'd say, what should I do? And I would always say, well, start with NIH. And then members of Congress that have either done things to thank them or other members of Congress that we need to bring in. And she was just amazing, and people gravitated to her. There was something just very special about Jane and the connection that she had with chimps. So that really helped us a lot. Was her effort. She's now in her 90s. She's still traveling. She's absolutely amazing. And I hope you all send her good vibes on her travels. And one of the things she's done the most is introduce young people. She has a group called Roots and Shoots to everything she knows about in her life. And she's pretty special person. But I also just, and this is repeating a little, but I view it a little bit differently when you're an elected official and you get involved in issues. I have always believed that it's the grassroots that really makes a difference. That's you. That's you. All of you out there on the streaming, you've hung in for the 28 years or longer, and been an advocate and cared and spent hours and hours and hours. And, that's the way we gain our credibility, Gene, with the press. The press likes to tell stories that people feel strongly about. And so I just want to applaud all of you. And your leaders through animal protection, Lisa, with my office, Renee knows this very well. He also worked for me down in Las Cruces. Laura Bonar, she was working with our office when she was with animal protection. So those are a couple of people I want to mention, but I think that it's it's very special to get in an issue like this, because my father used to tell me, he said, you should get involved. He was speaking to me because he was a longtime public servant. He said, just because an issue is going to take a lifetime or more, get involved with it, because you will know that you can make a difference. And don't be discouraged. And that's what all of you as the grassroots folks have hung in there on. This is an issue it took a long time, and I think Lisa's comment about it's always impossible until it's done, that's how I started feeling after a while. So my final word, I want to talk to you about unity and how you hung together, but also unity in terms of the situation we're in as a country. And the unity that you have had with all of your partners and the people you care about, and how you've moved along and said, who can we get involved? Who are the other people we can bring in? And, you know, you're in touch with pet owners. You're in touch with veterans that care about animals. You're in touch with so many different organizations and people and groups that share your values. And that's the same thing we need to be doing now to return us to a society and continue to grow together with all the other beings on the earth. So with that, I thank you so much for all of the work you've done. And it's just such an honor to be here and to arrive home and have this happen and be able to come down. So I know Senator Bingaman would also send his very best. I've seen him since I've been back, and all the people that were mentioned, especially when I decided to leave the Senate. I left Martin Heinrich and Ben Ray and the whole crew, and they're still working for all of you on all these animal protection issues. Thank you so much, and let's give a big round of applause for this guy as your MC. He's Gene Graham. Thank you.
Ambassador Tom Udall, another round of applause, please. That's the official end of our program, but we got the room till 5:30. You don't have to leave. So here's what we're going to do. Luis, you've seen him around with a camera. He's taking some reactions from what you've heard today and just get your feelings about Sanctuary and that it's happened. I'm around the corner outside in the hall. I've got a little audio booth over there. We'd love to have some folks stop by and talk about how they feel about this situation as well. So please do stop over if you would. But most of all, thank you. And to the online audience, wherever you may be around the world, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks, folks. Have a great time. Celebrate. This is a time to celebrate. Absolutely.